yangu nikuambie, I normally say that when it comes to public leadership, mambo mengine hata uwezi kuzungumza kisiasa. First of all, mimi saa hii ndio ninaingia siasa. Most of my life nimekuwa mtu technocrat wa kufanya kazi pale nje. Na nilifurahia tu wakati niliona mzee Oburu akisema wakati wa interview, kiongozi wa ODM akisema akiniona anaona mimi ni mtu technocrat wa masuala ya management na mambo kama hayo. Ni kweli, kwa sababu maisha yangu yote mengi nimekuwa nikifanya technocratic work and support. Lakini sasa ukiangalia nchi yetu vile iko saa hii, ninaulizanga wenzetu wa Kenya, wawe kutoka eneo la Nyanza, eneo la mkoa wa Kati ama kwingine kote katika Jamhuri ya Kenya. Ukiangalia vile serikali iko saa hii na yale maneno ambayo yanatendeka nchi, unajiuliza swali, tuko sawa kweli? Na unaona kuna sehemu nyingi zinahitaji kurekebishwa. Nianzie kwanza ile ambayo inahusu kila mtu, karibu kila mtu, sekta ya elimu katika nchi yetu ya Kenya.
Yes.
Ile confusion iko sahihi katika sekta ya elimu ni ajabu. Wakati nilikuwa Kisumu about a month ago, nimekaa chini na vijana wengi, viongozi wa vyuo vikuu pande ile kutoka Maseno, Jaramogi Oginga Odinga University. Tumeketi pale Kisumu tunaongea nao. Na unaoja sisi wote hawa vijana, this is the focus of our daily struggle. Tunakuza watoto because they are building the foundation for our country tomorrow and the day after. Sasa when you look at the frustration that they have, others have discontinued studies, others are deferring exams and so on, kwa sababu ya mfumo wa university funding ambao haueleweki. Uje sasa katika sekta ya elimu. Mimi niko na marafiki, I mean almost every day mimi naongeanga na walimu because hao ndio, that is my life anyway. Every week I say I speak to an average of about 5-6 principals. Marafiki zangu wengine tunaongea,
wanakueleza vile mambo ilivyo.
Wananieleza vile wanasumbuka na mambo ya capitation, vile mambo ilivyo. Nimeangalia sisi sote tuko na watoto kwa shule. If you don't have your own children, biological children, wale unasaidia. We have so many children we are supporting who are in schools, relatives, watu wa jamii. Ukiangalia fee schedule, mtu anakupea fee schedule ya national school. Jana nilikuwa nasema kwa radio, 110,000. Ordinary parent kutoka Kanyamkago pale atatoa 110,000 wapi ya kulipa maranda ama kulipa alliance and so on.
Labda wanasema
hiyo ndio shida.
Labda unaweza sema hii shida haikuanza wakati huu. Hata wakati wako ulipokuwa waziri wa elimu, masuala ya capitation ilikuwa ina delay. Why is it convenient to talk about it now that you couldn't say the other time you were the helm of the Ministry of Education?
VOJ, in fact, the delay is different from absence.
Okay.
It's better you delay by a month or so, but when a whole term or 2 terms or so on go, and the capitation is not there, and it has even been reduced, it's a problem. You know, school principals are having hell running schools because of absence of pending bills, absence of resources and so on. Na pesa imepotea. You know, when it comes to public policy issues, ni vizuri tuongee tu ukweli vile iko. Most of this is as a result of wastage, public sector wastage. And I want to be fair and practical. Public wastage did not begin with this government. It's just that it went to totally different proportions. Many African governments, if you would be absolutely sincere,
yes,
governance and management of public resources is a big problem in many African governments. In most cases, it's levels that vary from one government to another because of the levels of discipline of various governments. When you come to this, when you see how our fellow citizens who are running government, because mimi sipendangi kutusi watu, when you look at our fellow citizens who are running government, the way they are doing it, their approach is slightly different and very wasteful. And most of the resources that we would be putting, especially in the education and the health sector, are lost in wastage, in this nonsensical bribery around the country, kuweka watu laini, kuwapea pesa, kuhonga watu and so on, instead of actually delivering real services to the people. Hizi shida zote zinahitaji that we review our country. Ukiangalia sector ya security, mimi nimeshangaa yale nimeona wiki hii wakati niliona Senator wa Kisii Onyonka akifukuzwa kutoka kwa mkahawa Siaya. I mean, nilijiuliza nchi gani? I mean, I don't know this country. where is this? We have lived all along. Mimi nimetembea kila mahali. Tunaenda hapo, unajua kulikuwa na wakati
Lepal unaenda unakula samaki.
Wacha hata Lepal. Kule kwa lake hapo, wakati nilikuwa serikali, tulikuwa tunakunywa kula hapo samaki na kina Orengo na Gladys Wanga na wale wengine wajumbe huko, tunakaa pale tukitoka mikutano Siaya ama tukitoka mikutano Mabe, tunaishia pale kwa lake kula samaki pale na waheshimiwa wajumbe wa bunge akina Rosa Bui na wengine. I mean, that's how we are supposed to interact. That's how we always interacted. I don't know when it changed to a point. Sasa nikienda nianze kujiuliza if I'm going to the lakeside to eat fish or not.
So kuna wastage kwa government.
Too much wastage, too much theft and looting of public resources. Hiyo ndio shida. You know, shida yetu ni kuambia ukweli vio inji sio pesa.
Pesa tuko nayo.
Shida yetu sio watu tuko nao wa kufanya kazi. Shida yetu tuseme tu ukweli vile iko ni management, usimamizi wa mipango ya serikali. Hiyo ndio shida.
Asante sana.
And being firm and forthright and focused on doing the things that need to be done and being serious about our work. I mean, if I was the president of the country today, I would be very embarrassed. Eti nchi hai tumekuwa huru miaka 63 independent. Eti moto, can you imagine? I mean, I even shudder to talk about it na mdomo yangu. Eti mtu kama tuseme gavana Wanga wa Homa Bay aende kukaa mkahawa pale Keroka, kwenda kuona marafiki zake Keroka pale, eti watu waanze kumwambia kumfukuza eti huwezi kuingia kwa mkahawa. What country is that?
Kuna siasa ambayo imeingia, siasa ya kunism. Labda ungegusia swala kama hilo. Ulipokuwa waziri wa usalama, kuna mambo kama haya yalikuwa yakifanyika Bwana Matiang'i?
See, I don't remember one incident. By the way, let me tell you. Mimi sikumbuki incident even one when thugs moved around with police officers when I was Minister for Interior. Eti thugs wanaenda, alafu tunaanza kujifanya.
But there were criminal gangs around.
When criminal groups...
Mombasa Republican councils were there.
Mombasa Republican...
Chinkororo in Kisii was also there.
No, they were not there.
They were there.
In fact, you know, Michuki and later on General Kaiseri to an extent, but Michuki mostly is the one who dealt with most of these organized gangs when he was Minister for Interior. Michuki then later on, the late Saitoti Kidogo, but Michuki is the one who crashed most of these big organized groups when he was Minister, because that's when the management of security took a fairly radical turn during President Kibaki's time. And they built that trajectory all the way, and mimi nasemanga tuseme tu kweli vile huko. I am very, very grateful, and we give credit to the late John Michuki, and because that was the turning point. If you face it, Angola, Msumbiji, Sungu, Chinkororo, Mombasa Republican Council, Jeshi la Ziwani, Baghdad Boys, he order is the turning point started with John Michuki. When he started Mungiki, the sorting out Mungiki in central Kenya, he started with that time. And the police continued in that trajectory all the way. By the time the late Kaiseri was becoming Minister for Interior, him and the generals that he worked with in the security sector, they brought in again another new approach, working jointly with the NIS and other people. When President Kenyatta created the multi-agents team in the security sector, so that we have symmetry and sharing of intelligence and so on. When I became Minister for Interior, now it was a question of implementing that multi-agents plan and working to now completely dismantle any of those existing groups.
So you had a solid or watertight strategy
completely
dealing with these organized criminal gangs.
Absolutely, and by the way, that structure is not gone. The structure is there. It's just that our leaders who are in office now need to be bold, courageous, and forthright in dealing with it. They will sort it out, because you know the security sector is the one that is most endowed and most regimented. From nyumba kumi, wazee wa nyumba kumi na village elders, uende mpaka kwa assistant chief, uende mpaka kwa sub county, ama uende kwa county, and all the way. We have security structures all the way. That is why, and we have a very elaborate intelligence mechanism. Uwezi kuniambia, mimi haziwezi kuamini. That's why I'm very firm and forthright on this matter. Uwezi kuniambia eti kuna watu wanaanza kufukuza mjumbe wa bunge kutoka kwa hoteli Keroka na siwajui nikiwa Minister for Interior. No. It means that the whole structure iko na shida pande hiyo. Kwa sababu hapo there is a sub county the deputy county commissioner kuna security team, kuna chief huko, kuna assistant chief huko, kuna wazee wa nyumba 10 na kuna elders pande hiyo. I mean, you will get all the information you need. How can you tell me eti mtu aenda afukuze? As I've given you an example, kiongozi amechaguliwa na watu, tuseme kama ni Senator Kajwang kutoka Homa Bay, aende kunywa chai mkahawa, even if it's in Nyansiongo where I come from, eti watu wamwambie toka hapa, huwezi kunywa chai kutoka hapa. Within hours we will know who those people are and we will ensure they are punished.
So kuna ulegevu kwa upande wa serikali ya sasa?
It must be. I mean, you know, honestly, and in any case, even people to gather courage, to wake up in the morning and people gather courage to do that kind of thing to a leader, they must be knowing that someone will protect them.
Okay.
They will not face the law. Even this thing we saw here during demonstrations, where people enter shops and they break into shops and so, na police wanawaangalia. I saw this when we had by-elections in Nyamira the other day, 3 by-elections. Yes. People walk in broad daylight with arrows and bows, intimidating people, and they are at the behest of an elected member of parliament who enjoys respect or who enjoys cover by a security team. I went to hospital on last Saturday, yes, to see a Gijana who was beaten by goons aligned to 2 politicians in Kisii. I asked the police officers when they met me there, I asked, are you happy? Are you proud of what you are doing? That this is happening under your jurisdiction?
So our security infrastructure,
and the police told me,
is not working.
They told me, afande, unaelewa hii, unatuelewa afande, na unajua ile inaendelea. Okay. Sisi tukiajiriwa tufanye kazi yetu, hii haitafanyika. Tu siasa imekuwa mingi, tunapigiwa masimu. Polisi wenyewe wanakuambia, hii ni shida inaletwa na watu wa siasa.
Labda mtu angependa kuhoji, tofauti gani iko kwa hiyo sehemu yako na your observation about what has been happening in the country with what happened in 2020 June when Raila Odinga came from the US, where he was met with the police excesses and brutality?
You see, what happened is this.
That
First of all, that
about 33 people were killed, according to Amnesty International and Human Rights Watch.
By the way, let me tell you, I don't think that the numbers, as they said, are truthful, but it doesn't matter. Even one life in Kenya is one life too many.
Yes.
There could be cases of political, and to the best of my knowledge, that matter was routinely investigated and fully or exhaustively investigated, and people are brought to book on the matter. Okay. The question is, people ask me all the time, what's the difference between what happened here and what happened there? The difference is how we responded to the matter, because we did not sanction those kinds of silly things. And when they happened, we went after those people, and everybody knew, including politicians who were aligned to government or people who were close to government. They knew that they would not escape the law. That is why even the incident that happened in Kisumu during the 2017 skirmishes that involved Pendo and everything, it was exhaustively investigated. And in fact, as I've said elsewhere, that as a government, rather than engage in cover-up or what have you on that particular case, I don't want to talk, of course, so much about this because the matter is in court, and there are police officers who are facing, who are being called to account. But as again, government...
But again, maybe just to cut you short, you sat at the National Security Advisory Council, where the CS Interior was there. Part of the responsibility of that council was deployment. Who takes responsibility then for what the atrocities which you are committed then?
No, VOJ, let me tell you the truth. And this is a matter on which I am very happy to have discussions about. Slowly, so that we carry our people in the right direction, so that we don't misinform our people. I was not in the advisory committee of the Security Council. I was in the Security Council itself, because the Minister for Interior sits in the National Security Council. So, as a Minister for Interior, that is a place where I cannot shirk responsibility. The police have got a document this size. It's called the standing orders of the police. There is the Act, there is the law, and there is the Constitution. The reason why the police have that document called the standing orders is so that they guide the behavior and the action of the police when they are deploying for any particular challenge. It may even be a simple alarm where someone has called you and said, my neighbor is beating his wife. There is a procedure on how the police are supposed to carry out that responsibility. When they go to carry out that responsibility and they act outside of the standing orders, they know they will face the consequences. And that case of Kisumu was not then different from any other cases. There are cases where even where there have been demonstrations in schools or in institutions and so on, the standing orders are very elaborate on what needs to be done. When that happens, the people on the ground who are leading that particular deployment take responsibility for everything outside of the mandate of the standing orders and what they were given to do. So what then is the government supposed to do? We show responsibility ourselves when we say, yes, this is outside of the law, yes, people need to be called to account, not cover it up at all. Every incident that happened when we were responsible at that particular time, there were no sacred cows, there was nobody to be protected. When people acted outside of the law and the regulations, we let them face the consequences of their actions. And if you meet the leaders of IPOA at that time, the Independent Police Oversight Authority, they will tell you that probably when I was the Minister for Interior is when they had the highest level of cooperation when it came to security matters and what needed to be done. The structures of the law and the Constitution are clear, and they must be led to work.
On corruption, maswala ya ufisadi, you've been very much loud about corruption. What strategy are you having as a presidential aspirant to stem corruption?
You know,
ufisadi umetunyanyasa sana kama wana Kenya.
I normally say corruption will kill us before any epidemic does in this country. In fact, corruption is going to decimate this country. Tuambiane tu ukweli. The level of corruption and theft of planned public resources has reached an historic high. It has never been this bad in our country. You know, when you wake up in the morning, I was going through the papers this morning. I saw a headline in one of the local dailies that is talking about an non-existent company being paid 10 billion shillings or something from government work and so on. I mean, I think Kenyans are tired. That is the order of the day, as it is. Look, I am not from Mars or from heaven. I am not a holy person. So first of all, when we approach these issues, we don't say we are holy and therefore we have come with heavenly solutions and so on. The reason why regulations, the law, constitution, and all these institutions exist in society is so that ili kila mtu awajibike. You know VOJ, ukienda hata kwa kanisa, kama hakuna sheria kwa kanisa, hata pastor na priest wanaweza kufanya mambo ya ajabu.
Hata kwa boma kuna sheria.
Hata kwa boma kuna sheria. Inafuatwa vile mambo inafanya. Shida yetu sisi vile tulivyo sahihi ni kwamba saa nyingine unashangaa kama kuna sheria. Kwa hivyo mambo ya ufisadi, mimi kwa maoni yangu, hakuna haja ya sheria mpya, tuna sheria ya kutosha. Hakuna haja ya mashirika mapya, tuna mashirika ya kutosha ya kupigana na ufisadi. What we are missing, ile shida tuko nayo sahihi, is honest, forthright and courageous leadership to deal with this problem. Na uwezi kupigana na hii shida ya ufisadi kama wewe mwenyewe uko na shida. Tuseme tu kweli. Kwa sababu you can't tell people to stop doing what you do every day. Sasa ni Wakenya sisi tuamue, tuwachague viongozi.
Kumaanisha nini katika huu muktadha?
Viongozi wetu wengi wa kitaifa wako kwa hii mambo. Na hii ufisadi na uporaji wa nchi unafanya na wakubwa wa nchi. That is it. Kwa hivyo hawawezi kuzuia kitu ambao wao wenyewe wanafanya. Kwa sababu ukiangalia haya maneno yanafanyika, unajiuliza hii kitu inaweza kufanyika kweli kama serikali inasimama imara? Mtu akikwambia, unajua by the way VOJ, ukisoma ripoti ya Auditor General kuhusu kitu kama hii ya e-citizen, unajua unashangaa, unasema tufunge hii nchi tuende nyumbani. There's nothing. I mean, it's crazy. Because mambo yale Auditor General anazungumzia yale, unajiuliza swali la kwanza, ilifanyikaje na inafanyikaje kwa nchi ambayo iko na sheria na katiba? Na wakubwa wanaangalia hii. Kwa hivyo mimi maoni yangu ni hii. Wakenya tu hatuwezi kukaa tukilalamika miaka yote. Tuko na uwezo. Na uwezo ni kwamba tuko na uwezo wa kuchagua viongozi ambao watatusaidia kusimama imara na hii maneno. Mimi nasema kila wakati sitafuti kiti ya urais kwa sababu nataka kufanya biashara. Sitaki kufanya biashara. I'm not looking for money. And I'm not interested in these things. And I can swear to you, even here, if you want, mimi nikipewa hii kazi, I will not do business with government. I'm not interested.
Manake saizi kuna hiyo sheria ya Conflict of Interest Act.
They have actually, this government has redefined conflict of interest. Sometimes unashangaa mambo ile unaona kila wakati inafanyika hapa. Mambo ukienda hata kama ni G2G nini, yote ni wakubwa wa serikali wako ndani. My insurance ya polisi, my insurance ya walimu, yote ni wakubwa wa serikali wako kwa hiyo maneno. So ni Wakenya kuamua. Unajua tunaweza kupiga story, tunapiga gumzo hapa, tunaongea hii maneno kila wakati, tunapiga hapa uchaguzi utakucha, watu waendelee. Ni sisi Wakenya ndio tunahimiza wapiga kura. Tafadhali tuache kuzungumzia eti maneno ya ufisadi na mambo kama hayo. Tuchukue hatua, na hatua tutachukua ni kwamba tuwachague viongozi ambao wanaweza kutusaidia kwa hii shida.
Asante.
Na mimi mpango wangu ni kwamba kwanza mimi niongoze kwa mfano wangu mimi mwenyewe kuwa kielelezo. Mimi sitaki kufanya biashara na serikali.
Asante.
Na sitafuti kazi kwa sababu ninataka pesa. Na nitawaahidi Wakenya, ninawaahidi Wakenya wale ambao wananisikiza leo, na akanisua hata na Biblia ukinipea saa hii VOJ, mimi nikipewa hii kazi sitafanya biashara na serikali. Na sitakubali mtoto wangu afanye biashara na serikali, kwa sababu uwezi it denies you the moral authority to manage the government.
Asante. Kuna hili swala la shamba la Ruaraka. Koti ilisema wakati huo ukiwa waziri wa elimu, there was what they had made a pronouncement that you ought to have taken responsibility over a parcel of land which was sold, and you advised that is public land.
No.
Clarify this.
You are misrepresenting facts, VOJ.
That is what is there.
Hakuna koti, nionyesha judgment ya koti nasema hivyo. Hakuna judgment ya koti nasema hivyo. Tuambie watu ukweli. Let us not mislead people kwa sababu ya siasa. This matter was adjudicated 6 years ago. Hakuna mtu hata ameappeal. Na koti haikusema hivyo. Hiyo unasema ni uongo, is inaccurate. The judgment ya koti siwezi hata mimi kuitetea kwa sababu it's there in black and white. Kila mtu anaweza hata ajisomea yeye mwenyewe. Sio maneno mimi nasema mimi mwenyewe. I was not even a party in that matter as a ministry. Hatukuwa hata party. Sisi hata hatukwenda koti kama party kwa hiyo maneno. Ilikuwa kati ya NLC na wale ambao walikuwa na claim hiyo shamba. Unajua kila wakati nikicha kwa waandishi wa habari kama nyinyi hapa, ninaulizwa hii mambo ya porojo kila wakati. Rivayala, Ruaraka, Miguna, court orders. Na kila wakati mimi nasema sababu nyinyi wote ni ndugu zangu na sisi zote ni Wakenya. Tafadhali tunaweza kusaidia hata wananchi wale ambao wanatusikiza ama wale wanatuona by being factual and honest. Tuwaambie watu ukweli vile uko.
Ukweli wako ni gani kuhusiana na
hili? Sio ukweli wangu, ukweli ule uko. Ni kwamba hii maneno hata ilienda kotini. Unajua kwa sheria, ukisoma sheria, hakuna wizara, hata wizara ya ardhi yenyewe katika katiba hii ya 2010, even the Ministry of Land has no powers over compensation and acquisition. Hakuna. Nguvu zote ziko na National Land Commission. The compensation inafanywa na National Land Commission, sio ministry yoyote. Even the Ministry of Lands today as it is cannot compulsorily acquire public property or a property for public purposes. They still have to go to the National Land Commission. Okay. This is a matter that was happening between the National Land Commission and people who are claiming on the land. Okay. All the reports on that land are prepared by the National Land Commission. The only role the Ministry of Education or any ministry, it could be environment, it could be water, whatever ministry that is involved. Yes. The only role under Section 7 of the Act is to confirm public interest. So that now you empower the National Land Commission then, or you allow the National Land Commission to proceed with that. The National Land Commission seeks that particular confirmation expressly from the ministry.
Because it's an independent commission.
It's independent. Okay. So when they came to us at the Ministry of Education, the only thing they asked us is to confirm whether the school that is involved, there is public interest in the school. Okay. When I was in the Ministry of Interior, by the way, I saw those kinds of letters again from NLC in respect of police stations that were built where people were claiming some of the land was private. The NLC would write to us and ask us, does this confirm public interest? And you see, for us in the Ministry of Education, public interest in a school is, hiyo ni shule inapata walimu wa TSC, hiyo ni shule inapata capitation. Kama inapata capitation kutoka kwa wizara na inapata walimu wa TSC, that is the public interest in the school. The rest of that business ni mambo ya National Land Commission kufanya. Alafu VOJ ni kuambie hivi, wale ambao wanasema makosa ilifanyika, sheria pia inapea nguvu National Land Commission wakikulipa kwa shamba baadaye ijulikane kwamba hayo malipo hayakuwa ya kweli, sheria pia inawapea uwezo National Land Commission kurudi kwako wakwambie, wewe VOJ ulikuja kwetu katuambia hii ni shamba lako tukakulipa, lakini tumegundua si shamba yako, ni shamba ya umma, turudishie pesa yetu. Wachukue hizo pesa walikulipa ama wakupeleke kotini kama walifanya makosa. Sasa National Land Commission bado iko. Wale watu ambao walilipwa mimi siwajui wako huko. Kama makosa ilifanyika, si sasa NLC rudi kwa wale waambie sasa nyinyi mlikuja mkatudanganya kwamba shamba ni yenu lakini shamba ni ya serikali. Kwa sababu already VOJ, this is why I normally encourage people to read and get facts before they ask questions.
We do
already
that
NLC,
as a responsibility.
Yeah, NLC is already actually asking compensation, I mean refund of money in other conversations they have done before, and they discovered the land was actually, the facts they had were wrong. So the question is, the Ministry of Tourism, for example, in respect of that compensation, they are now reversing on Mombasa Road involving some hotel. The Minister of Tourism is not being involved, or the then Minister for Tourism is not said to have sold public land. So these are the facts.
So it's merely politics is what you read about what has been asked.
Siasa tu porojo, kwa sababu you see what also amazes me, and I'm happy about it. Hakuna kitu. I served in public for 10 years. There's nothing to pin me down on. Lazima sasa watu wapike vitu, unajua waraka.
Thank you. Fair enough. Uko na labda strategy gani kuhusiana na masuala ya devolution?
You see, devolution, you don't need a strategy. What you need to do is obey the law and do the right thing and act responsibly in terms of administration. You see, if we stop the wastage of public resources, because the question for devolution is whether or not to support the growth, existence, institutionalization, and strengthening of devolution. We have accepted this as a way of life, and I think it's one of the best decisions we took as a country. Okay, there are challenges, to be honest with you, because I think, did we create too many counties, in my view? I think the structure, administrative and government structure of the constitution we created may be heavier than our economic capability. That's debate for another day. But as it is now, the best is to try and work very hard through the existing infrastructure to strengthen devolution, work very closely with the county governments. I remember when we had the challenge of COVID in 2020, 2021, had we not worked very closely with the county governments, we would not have succeeded. The president then had very regular meetings with governors, and we always interfaced with them very closely, on the things that they do. And then there's work that we were doing, because I remember on the side of government, I was the one who was chairing the meetings, and on the side of the governors, it was Governor Oparanya, who was the chair of the Council of Governors. We had started a program of looking at, for example, any barriers to investment and trade within the country as a result of so many levies and so many business decisions that are made by counties. How we reduce the permits, how we reduce the levies in the counties to facilitate growth, investment, and so on.
Ease of doing business.
Ease of doing business. So, in my view, the best way to support devolution in the country is to ensure that we stay on that trajectory of constantly looking at how we harmonize that interface between national and county governments. And this should be done almost universally at all levels, whether it is on statutory actions, whether it's on the question of trade, whether it's a question of administration, even security, because you see in some areas, the county has got the enforcement officers, then you have police officers, then you have administrators. Sometimes they overlap and mandates cause unnecessary tensions and stuff like that. There was a law that was enacted by Parliament that is supposed to give county governments authority over a measure of local security management. That needs to be looked at, so that, for example, in the case of what we witnessed this week on the goons in Kisumu and in Siaya, probably a better interface of that and constant training. At some point, we were even mooting the idea of harmonized training in the security sector between the enforcement teams in the county level and the national level people, So this is what I think hii ndio itasaidia kwa kisa, because you see what do Kenyans want? Wanataka amani, wafanye biashara. They want a good business environment where, you know, the licensing regime does not impede business. If you are moving goods from Nairobi to Kisumu, you're passing through 3 or 4 counties. You can't pay levies at every county and so on. Those are the kind of things. So constant engagement, constant working is critical. And two, if we reduce the level of wastage, for example, in the national government, of course, more resources will be available so that you can move more resources to county governments. So the county governments can be able to deliver on the mandates they have and on the services that they can give.
Kuna shida ya debt. Madeni. Mengi sana. Wakati wa uhuru kutangia mwaka wa 2013 to 2022, 8.9 trillion. Now we are at 12.9 trillion. Comparatively.
You know, as long as we mismanage the economy and mismanage the country.
And in fact, people would argue that you served in an administration that developed an appetite for borrowing. The late President Mwai Kibaki left it at 1.9 trillion. Your boss then left the country with a whopping 8.9 trillion.
VOJ, you cannot develop and build huge infrastructure and increase or hasten the growth of your economy if you don't borrow. To start with from that point. But the borrowing, we have to go through this very carefully so that, you know, wale ambao wananisikiza wananielewa vizuri. Kukopa sio shida. Ni wapi unatoa mkopo na ni nini unafanyia mkopo. Those are the two questions you need to answer. Na kama hilo ambalo unalifanyia mkopo inaleta matumaini ama manufaa kwa nchi. Ukikopa pesa ujenge for example SGR kutoka Mombasa mpaka Nairobi, and you can see the economic benefit of doing that. Ama ukikopa you open up infrastructure in a spectacular manner to spur growth, hakuna shida kwa pande hiyo. Shida ni kukopa na watu wakirudi baadaye wanajiuliza huu mkopo ulienda wapi na umefanyiwa nini, the process. So what would I do in my view? First of all, I think we should make better use of what we borrow. Tuanzie hapo. Shida tulionayo ni kwamba niseme tu kweli, and part of this is not 100% the responsibility of this government. It's the way we have run government most of the time, and now we need to part from that way of doing things. Before we seek facilities, it must be very clear what we want to use those facilities for. We had started a process, which I would do if I was president, namely cleaning up our debt portfolio. You know, sometimes kuna kona zingine za government, kuna kuweko madeni ama facilities which were negotiated by entities of government without involving the national government. But it goes into our debt book. You know, a parastatal, for example, negotiates a facility like now. Before we came to government, one of the parastatals, one of the big parastatals in the country had negotiated some extremely unreasonable facility that continues to accrue incredible interest and so on and so forth. And the fact that it was led to pass and the signatures were appended by senior government officers is the responsibility of government that you would remove when you are a good manager. So it's a question of being tight in terms of how you manage, you know, borrowing and so on, how you manage utilization of public resources. Thirdly, it's also ensuring that the funds go to what they're intended for. Because you see, sometimes you ask yourself the question, those 4 trillions that we have borrowed in the last 4 years, imeenda wapi in the process? Imefanya nini? Iko wapi? Where can you see it? Because tunajenga nyumba under this housing arrangement, ni pesa tunachukua kutoka kwa wananchi through taxation and so on. Where is that 4 trillion? Ilienda wapi? Because you see, unaweza kusema you have expressway, Mheshimiwa Uhuru alikopa kujenga expressway, unaiona. alikopa kujenga SGR, unaiona. Alikopa kufanya zile vitu ambazo tumefanya, madamu Thiba damu ni Kirinyaga na hizi zote ziko huku, unaziona zote. Sasa hizi zingine ziko wapi? It's a question of managing what we borrow for.
Kukopa si shida.
Kukopa si shida.
Shida ni kutumia.
Shida ni kutumia na vile tunatumia mkopo. Na pia shida ni tunakopa kutoka wapi. Tukikopa madeni ambayo yako na interest ya hali ya juu kutoka kwa private sector badala ya kwenda kwa multilaterals, tuende kwa World Bank where we get concessional loans. Unaweza kupata, tuseme kwa Kiswahili, I don't know how you call it, but nasema ni madeni ambayo ni rahisi kulipa kuliko yale ya private sector. Hakuna haja ya kwenda kwa private sector badala ya kwenda kwa kama World Bank ama mashirika haya mengine ambayo yanaweza hata kutupungusia kwa interest kulipa, na tunakopa kwa muda mrefu ambayo inatusaidia. So hiyo ndiyo shida, lakini mwishowe ni kuambie shida yetu Kenya hakika sio pesa.
Okay.
Pesa tukimanage ushuru wetu vizuri na tumanage ile pesa zetu tunachukua vizuri, hatuwezi kuwa na shida. We can really do what we
Okay. Kuna njia mbili ambazo serikali inatumia kutafuta rasilimali. Moja ni mkopo ambayo umezungumzia, nyingine ni ushuru. How far should we stretch our tax base as a nation, and what would you do?
I think we are overtaxed. We are overtaxed, and when you look at the Kenyan workers, in most cases wafanyakazi wa Kenya wengi wako na payslip ndio, lakini tuseme tu kweli watu wanaumia. Mtu akikuonyesha payslip yake unashangaa how they make, how they will make ends meet in a process. So I think we can't tax our way to development and prosperity.
Okay.
That's why I keep saying either we deal more with concessional borrowing, better management of the resources that we can get, because concessional resources and funds are all over, and then we also make very good and responsible use of the PPP arrangement.
Okay.
I'm underlining the word responsible because that has also become an avenue of incredible corruption and then looting of public resources. And by the way, there are some of these...
Because there was also a question of the expressway under the PP program and even other programs during your tenure then in the previous administration. But you were not loud about them.
The people who raise questions about that PPP, by the way, have never demonstrated to me or convinced me what the problem is with the PPP. Because also, if you're Jay, we can't wake up in the morning and say there's a problem here, there's a problem, there's a problem. We can't demonstrate. They have never convinced me. What is the problem? The problem is they were not involved in the PPP, or they think it was skewed against us.
What they cite is non-disclosure of critical government documents on PPP, maybe contracts. A case in point was the SGR. I remember your former boss was put to task at one point to lay bare, and we were promised to get that document, which we've never gotten up to date. Does that worry you as a presidential candidate?
VJ, this is again, unfortunately, to be honest with you, I want to be very polite and say, before people ask questions or before people go to interviews, they need to do their homework very well.
I did my homework well,
When Matiang'i came to office as Minister for Transport, the first thing they did is they published the SGR contract and put it in the public domain. And at that particular time, everybody was asking the question, what is wrong with the contract? Because they actually promised they were going to refill it, and they refilled it. They said this is the SGR contract.
But the administration that you served in failed to put it to the public. Does that worry you when you look at the issue of accountability?
It doesn't
as a public officer.
It doesn't worry me because the contract was available all the time. There was nothing new. That is why it was very easy again when the new administration came to office. They immediately said this is the contract, and this was put out. And everybody was asking the question, what is the problem with the contract? And to this day, nobody has ever said what the problem with that contract was.
There was the issue of overpricing.
No, but nobody has even pointed out that overpricing. It has never been discussed by anybody anywhere. Because you see, the other issue is that, the things which sound, they are good politics. But good politics is not always factual or even sensible when you look at it. Because that question, in any case, let us grant you that credit and say you are right in what you are saying. there's a government in place which has a responsibility to publish those documents. And you know, by the way, by law, government cannot hide documents, especially from parliament. Because the government is accountable, the executive branch of government is accountable to parliament, because the parliament are the representatives of the people. Any committee of the house, any departmental committee of the house can actually go and demand to see or to have sight of a contract, and there's no problem with that. Frankly speaking, and the facts will bear me out on this matter, unfortunately, this is again that area where I have to be polite and say, you know, I like a situation where when people come into a situation, they have looked at all the sides of what is supposed to be happening. It is very difficult in this day and age, let me tell you, Jay. It is not even difficult, almost impossible for you to actually hide a contract. How did Kenyans know about what was going on at JKIA and the concessioning that was going on there? It's very difficult. There's no government that can hide, because if you don't want to reveal the contract yourself, your counterpart will be bound by even international regulation and they will reveal it. So that issue of the SGR contract, it was revealed. And even when this administration came to power, the Minister for Transport, the first thing he did was to say he's putting out the contract open. Our government had never refused to put out the contract. When they were demanded of it by Parliament, they just owned up, because you cannot ignore Parliament as it is. So, as I said, there are things that are very good politics and correct politics. But correct politics and good politics is always not factual politics.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
It is not good to ignore Parliament.
Yeah.
But during your tenure, a couple of times you were summoned by different House committees, and you didn't attend. Some of them you attended, some of them you didn't.
Again, another aspect of good politics.
I mean, it's a question of accountability. We have institutions which you are accountable as a leader. So when you are invited to a House committee to shed light on contraband sugar, the role of the ministry during COVID-19, the Roraka land scandal, it was available most times.
VOJ, again, this is a matter which I keep saying...
I'm asking on behalf of the public, because they sent me here to ask you this.
Yeah, again, this is a matter on which, in all honesty and fairness, facts say something totally different. The question is this: let's begin from what is very rudimentary and factual on this particular matter. There is one thing that will not save you as a cabinet minister: defying Parliament. Because even the president will not save you from defying Parliament. Because if Parliament fires you or Parliament sacks you, even the president cannot reinstate you or appoint you. And you cannot actually qualify for public office if Parliament sanctions you as a cabinet minister. So let me begin from that rudimentary and say this: there is no minister I know of, unless you have a problem, who will try to defy Parliament. Because if you defy Parliament, you know what is going to happen. And Parliament has got powers to sanction you. So that's fact number one. Number two, as I said, you know, there are things that are good politics, but they cannot be supported by facts. The Hansard is there, the records are there, and everything is there. People who are either your political detractors or people who want to look for something negative to say about you will always find things to say. Or he did not come to Parliament. How is it that there is not a single committee of the House for the entire 10 years I served as a minister? I was not sanctioned by one committee of Parliament, one. So if what is being claimed is true, how is it that if you are saying that most times I did not appear in Parliament, how is it that I wasn't sanctioned by the Parliament? Yet the standing orders, by the way, provide that you can only fail to come there 3 times. If you fail to come there 3 times, the committee sanctions you. I was not sanctioned once by any committee of the House. Fact number 3. When you are serving as a cabinet minister, especially in a busy docket like that of Interior and Coordination of National Government, chances are that given the roles that you play at that particular time, within and without the country, because by tradition, the cabinet minister in charge of Interior is essentially like, quote unquote, the special envoy for security for the National Security Council, especially in the region. And there will be regional things that are happening at that time while you are serving as Minister for Interior. I remember, for example, vividly, one time when the Departmental Committee on Security wanted me in the House, and the President wanted me to join the Prime Minister of Ethiopia in a meeting they were having on a critical security matter in the region with the rest of the people, because the President could not travel. So at that time, you have to be nadis, and you are required in Parliament. So what happens, and the records are there. You do a very respectful letter to the Speaker and explain your schedule, and ask the speaker either to allow you to send either your assistant minister at that time when we had assistant ministers or the PS, or asking the committee to give you a different date. There isn't a single time I can remember for the entire 10 years I served as a cabinet, there isn't a single time when the Speaker of the House either wrote a rude letter to me or a sanction letter to me or disagreed with me. In all cases of that kind, the clerk wrote back and said, the committee has been advised to reschedule you for next week. Okay.
Or, so your absence was justifiable
or send the PS to come and appear. And you know, if I was a sanctioned minister for non-appearance in Parliament, a sanctioned minister is where the clerk has written and said, you failed 3 times and therefore the committee has taken this drastic action against you. I don't have that. So when people raise these matters all the time, again, unfortunately, and I have had interviews with reporters who ask this, and I tell them, please consult your facts before you raise the question. The politics will be there, but the facts will also be in a different direction. Look at the facts before you go to the politics. It's like this thing of court orders. When people say, oh, you didn't obey court orders, and I ask the question, which order? Court orders are not things you can dream about and wake up in the morning and say, oh, the court orders have got references. So give me a reference of a particular court order that I defied. Then when you look at that, you discover again, it is, people are looking for an opportunity to lynch you politically. And then in that particular case, there is nothing. I said it in another interview the other day, I think I was sued as a minister 11 or 13 times, I can't quite remember the number. For the entire 10 years I was a minister, I did not lose a single case as a minister. And ministers and government officers will be sued all the time. You are taking action, for example, when I took action on firearms, the small arms, the licensing of firearms, and saying the regime is completely messed up, it's riddled with corruption. I nullified the entire registration of firearms and said, let's do it afresh so that we can know who actually is selling firearms in the country, who is licensed to carry firearms, and whether or not we are following the law. I did not write a new law. I simply went to the Act as it is, and I said, let us go down the Act. The Act requires that for you to be licensed to carry a gun, you must qualify this. Is everyone who is licensed to carry a gun in this country obedient to these particular provisions? The answer is no. We actually cancelled so many licenses. But you see, people will always resist, especially those who have been doing illegal activities. I reduced the people who are selling guns in this country by over 80% by that act alone, because many did not qualify. So what is their result? They will go to court. And they go and say, oh, the minister is being this. And I say, let us patiently follow the court. And the court initially ends up reading the law, reads the decision I've taken, and says the minister is right. 11 times the court said that the minister is right. So when people say, you defied this, which one? So let us always be guided by fact and the truth, and look at how things are going.
No problem. Thank you so much for that clarification. We shall resume after a short break, Mheshimiwa. I know there's the thorny issue of deportation of Miguna, which happened during your tenure. And of course, we'll delve into the issue of your plan for the region. The region is known for blue economy, sugarcane farming. What plans do you have for the region?
I'm very happy to discuss anything you like me to discuss. I am a public person. I have to be fully 100% accountable. I am happy to answer any question you ask me to answer. Those I know, I will give you the answers. Those I don't know, I'll also be honest enough and tell you I don't know.
Maybe before we hang up the microphone, one thing that people seem to characterize you with is that Dr. Matiang'i is a bully, an authoritarian, a dictator.
The question is, when you...
Has anybody ever asked you about this?
Frankly, nobody asks me that. I hear somebody making this comment here or there. And the question is, I ask this question. I would say personally that I'm probably, one of the most successful ministers in this country. I never wrote a new law in the things that people never step back and answer this question. And this is why I keep saying all the time, let's inform ourselves before we go into debates on issue. I never wrote any new law. Even when actually we drove very radical changes in the education sector to clean up the education sector, We didn't even write any new law. We didn't go to Parliament to write a law and ask Parliament to amend this law, amend that law.
So we have adequate
just
laws.
Implemented.
We have adequate laws.
Exactly.
But wrong people to implement them.
A lot of people are compromised, you know, because when you are compromised, there's nothing you can do. When you are not, you see, for example, if I was a compromised minister, I wouldn't clean up the small arms sector the way I did. And yet you see, those people, the people who sell bundukis are people who are, they have money. They're well connected and so on. So to stand up to them and tell them, this is what the law says, for you to be licensed to sell guns in Kenya, so that, you know, a private citizen can apply for a pistol and get it, this is what you need to have. If you don't have it, goodbye. And I removed almost 80% of the people who are selling small guns.
So Dr. Matiang'i is a stickler of the law.
I obey the law, that's all. Okay, I am all about the law, nothing else. Mimi ni mtu wa sheria tu.
Asante sana. Asante sana Nyakwana Mugajwang, tutaikatiza hapo kidogo. Angalau tupate taarifa ya habari ya saa 3 asubuhi. Wabro yudo weche manyene yo machuok kod Vincent Otieno studio mara Mogi FM Manarobi Kanya kwa Mugajwang. Kain gi penjo mora kawa duogo Dr. Matiang'i bro lero ni to en gi paro mane e wach mar blue economy mano fisheries nitie. Wan gi minerals e gwenge mag Nyanza, bende wan gi weche mag pur mar niang' makelnwa sukari, cotton kod mamoko. En gi paro mane. To penjo machielo kama bende ang'eni ji biro penjo ni to nyalo bedo ni en mana ng'ama idhiro project mar jatend piny machon Uhuru Kenyatta mago te biro ni bang' kinde manok kende, bed mana kete kama en Ramogi FM kar chuny jaluo. Nyinga en VOJ.
Short is how long?
About 10 minutes.
10 is enough. I can go to Itugali.
So that we can now talk
remove this.
The bone of the interview should now focus on now what you want to.
No, even the Miguna issue I want to answer. There is no problem. I just, you know, the question is like, now I'm telling you. Like I'm telling you. No, you're Jerry. And then this is.
Let me get it.
You know, people think I'm impatient with people. When Murkomen became a minister,